You cheated, Diana. That is the truth. That is the only truth, and truth is all there is. You cannot be the winner because you are not ready to win, and there is no shame in that, only in knowing the truth in your heart and not accepting it. No true hero is born from lies. That is some bad writing.
I know that Wonder Woman 84 came out quite a while ago now, and there are already a plethora of articles and videos and analyses to be found on its various virtues and flaws. But in quiet moments, I continue to find the time to be annoyed about it, and we are still in plague times. So, here goes. Disclaimer. If you loved this film, I'm not here to harsh your joy. I encourage you to watch something else that will make you happy. So, I guess we have to start with the first Wonder Woman film. Released in 2017 by director Patty Jenkins and grossing $822 million on a budget of $150, Diana Prince's introduction to the big screen had been a long time in coming. We'd seen multiple live-action Superman and Batman on screens large and small for decades already, but despite the character having existed in comics for about 75 years and having been the subject of a beloved 1970s TV show starring Linda Carter, Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman was the first to appear in a major motion picture. And yeah, the question of why it took so long is going to require a little bit of a deep dive, so
hold on to your butts.
Action films like Wonder Woman have often been considered a risky endeavor by the movie industry. Skeptics would point to any number of examples, be they financial bombs, or terrible scripts, or just middling projects that failed to break box office records, and call them proof that the very concept of a movie like Wonder Woman was not only unprofitable, but not even worth attempting. We can see an example of this in the leaked 2014 letter to Sony executive Michael Lynton from former CEO of Marvel Entertainment Ike Perlmutter, which lists 3 such underperforming superhero films, complete with commentary on how disastrously each failed. Just FYI, this is the same Ike Perlmutter who was allegedly responsible for the dearth of Black Widow-themed toys after the release of 2012's The Avengers. He also commented that no one would notice Don Cheadle replacing Terrence Howard in Iron Man 2 because he thought, and I quote, that Black people look the same, and he was supposedly one of the strongest influences in delaying production of solo films for Black Widow, Captain Marvel, and Black Panther, as he believed that they would not be successful. The latter 2 movies both went on to make over $1 billion each at the box office, while Perlmutter's pet project Inhumans rests at 11% on Rotten Tomatoes and never saw a second season. So Ike Perlmutter is a douche. And in Hollywood, one can only assume that people like Ike Perlmutter abound. So we have a movie industry that's scared to take a risk because, after an idea fails once, Hollywood never tries it again, and superhero franchises don't get do-overs when they bomb, and no other action films or superhero movies in history have ever failed to recoup their budget or been poorly reviewed, and therefore, despite a long if scattered history of actresses raking in good reviews and big bucks on screen, Hollywood was slow to increase support for the idea of action heroines leading their own franchise.
Dink, say goodbye to Felix. Man talk.
Okay, this is the numbers section, so bear with me. According to theatrical market statistics over the last decade, audience gender demographics for sci-fi, fantasy, and superhero films average out to something like a 60-40 split, and increase to 50-50 or higher for certain films like the first Wonder Woman. How is this interest reflected on screen? Well, since the release of The Mark of Zorro in 1920, there's been between 1 and 200 live-action big-screen superhero films, depending on your parameters. Out of these, and my calculations are sloppy here, so we're ballparking, about 10 have first-billed female lead characters or titular characters.
Sigourney's character, there's this long history of women in science fiction who, basically have nothing to do.
Not 10%. About 10.
I remember that Jackie always used to go around saying that women should not do any action, period.
Jackie and I are very good friends. I say this to it, to his face. He always believes that women should stay at home and cook and don't do anything and be the victim and da-da-da-da-da. Except for Michelle. Except for Michelle now, he said, because I would kick his butt.
We start off with 1984's barely remembered Sheena, Queen of the Jungle, and Supergirl, followed by 1985's Red Sonja. After that, there isn't another for 19 years until Catwoman won the Razzies in 2004, Elektra bombed in '05, and then there is, again, nothing for 12 years until Wonder Woman became one of the biggest hits of 2017. And it wasn't just a big hit, it was pretty good. Some bits of it were even very good. The ending was more than a little messy, but the battle on the beach, the crossing of no man's land, some of the production design, Robin Wright's grit and Gal Gadot's sincerity, and Chris Pine's relatability, they made the film into the blockbuster it became. All of this, of course, under the guiding hand of one Patty Jenkins. As an aside, I will always be vaguely bitter that Lucy Lawless was never able to play a live-action version of the character, having voiced an animated one in Justice League New Frontier some years prior. But my vision of Diana Prince was of a more mature, experienced, worldly take on the character than the one that Patty Jenkins wanted to show us. And you know what? That's fine. Give me a film with heart and a couple of good fight scenes, and I will mostly go home happy. Because of all of this, I was pretty excited for Wonder Woman 84. The plot sounded fun, Steve Trevor had low-key been my favorite character in the first movie, and I was excited for more kick-ass battle scenes.
When the fuck did she have time to do a shoe change?
We're going to put box office revenue aside here because it's not fair to compare any film that came out in a COVID year with one that didn't, but the difference in critical and audience reception is pretty clear. Most people agree that Wonder Woman 84 suffered a massive drop in quality. I'm pretty sure that a lot of deep and insightful commentary has already been done here because the issues abound. The movie's too long, lacks internal consistency, the plot is frivolous and mundane by turns, the action scenes are often bland or dark, the villain is an old, tired trope, there's bad CGI and an uncomfortable body swap plotline, plus cloying, ham-fisted messaging about being careful what you wish for and trusting people to do the right thing. But literally I made this whole video because I'm mad about some shoes, so it's the shoes we're going to start off with. I have to admit that my first assumption when watching this film was that it had been written by someone like Ike fucking Perlmutter, or whatever version of him haunts the studio lot over at DC. Unfortunately, it turns out that Wonder Woman 84 was in actuality written by Patty Jenkins. I mean, it was her and Jeff Johns and David Callahan, the crafter of such masterpieces as 2020's Mortal Kombat, 2014's middling to decent Godzilla, and 2021's far superior Shang-Chi. But Jenkins has openly stated that she was pretty much given free rein with the story here. On the flip side, 2017's Wonder Woman was written by comic book author and TV writer Alan Heinberg, who worked on the story with Zack Snyder and Jason Fuchs. So, come on, Patty. You wrote Monster in 2003 and it won an Oscar. We were rooting for you, Miss Jenkins. We were all rooting for you. Anyway, back to the shoes. Alongside the struggle to get non-shitty heroine roles in action films has been the struggle to get them into sensible costumes.
She transforms!
Embraces her feminine strength.
Goodbye, Yellow Brick Road!
And hello, Starlight.
I can't wear that.
I mean, if Leia wearing that golden slave bikini in Star Wars, films where George Lucas didn't allow Carrie Fisher to wear any underwear because he told her it didn't exist in space, if that was your sexual awakening, like, I get it. But whereas Han Solo never had to run around shooting stormtroopers while wearing little golden gym shorts, there have been years upon years of very sexy and very impractical clothes for fighting women on screen.
Did you have to run in those high heel boots?
Yeah, we always have to run in high heel boots or high heels. We're constantly in uncomfortable clothing. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Men get to wear like these mercenary outfits, you know, full mask, full everything.
They're wearing motorcycle pads for some reason. It's just what they always wear.
Oh, yeah. And then the women are in like a little shorts or whatever, so it can be a little difficult.
And while there are notable exceptions from the last few decades, as there are with anything, it's a trend that has been slow to change.
I mean, my TV Guide interview was 6 paragraphs about my boobs and how they fit into my suit.
Now, were you able to wear undergarments?
You're like the 5th person that's asked me that.
Well, no, because
what is going on? Since when did people start asking each other in interviews about their underwear?
No, because it is such a skin tight.
I'll leave it up to your imagination.
It is changing, of course, and in recent years we've even seen lampshading or subversion of these issues with increasing regularity. In Ryan Coogler's Black Panther, the Dora Milaje wear full body armor and flat-soled tabi. Okoye rips off her wig in the middle of a fight, and Nakia takes off and then attacks someone with her heels. How the most relatable moment in Kathy Yan's Birds of Prey is the bit where one of the characters offers another one a hair tie. The brainchild of costume designer Erin Bennock and screenwriter Christina Hodson, the moment made rounds between a lot of excited fans on social media after the film's release. During the production of Kate Shortland's Black Widow, Scarlett Johansson, finally a lead with decision-making power on her own film, told costume designer Janie Tamaim that she flat out refused to wear heels any longer, calling them uncomfortable and silly. In the film, the lead heroes braid their hair away from their faces, they wear utilitarian jumpsuits, and the most relatable moment in the movie comes when Yelena Belova is very excited that her vest has pockets.
It's so cool, right?
It's cool,
yes. And you can put so much stuff in there, you wouldn't even know.
And yet still in many franchises, in the middle of a knockdown, drag-out fight, you have a lack of proper armor, and you have these goddamn shoes.
What's the matter now?
How do they walk in these things, huh? How do they keep their balance?
Must be the way the weight is distributed. Now, come on.
Ellen Ripley, Sarah Connor, and Xena Warrior Princess may have stomped around their battlefields on flat-soled boots, but here, as in so many other ways, they were ahead of their time. Ankle-breaking stilettos, high-heeled boots, and towering wedges have practically been a staple of action heroine attire, even in good films, even in franchises that choose otherwise sensible costuming. And you can throw thermine arguments at the issue of skimpy clothing all day long, but according to veteran costume designer Ellen Mirojnek, stilettos usually feature in a production just because directors or studio execs want their characters looking sexy. I love high heels. I think they look pretty great. They're also a great way to break an ankle if you're trying to do martial arts. I mean, you can dance and run and do backflips in stilettos if you're well practiced, but they throw off your center of gravity, don't protect the foot, don't support the ankle, and can affect your long-term spinal health. And in the real world, there is one group of individuals who physically suffer the consequences of a production's poor wardrobe choices, who, more than anyone, follow in the tradition of that old adage about Ginger Rogers.
I had to jump 14 feet in 4-inch heels and land on my feet into a mat that was floating on the ocean. On my landing, I tore all 3 of my ligaments and compressed my talus into my tibia and my joint locked up.
In the 2020 documentary Stunt Women, The Untold Hollywood Story, stunt performers detail the ways in which a lack of protection offered by skimpy costumes and fragile stilettos can add a myriad of practical and safety problems to any shoot.
It is so drafty. They must be catching cold all the time, huh?
Will you quit stalling? We're gonna miss the train.
I feel naked.
And in a 2016 article with The Guardian, Wonder Woman 84 stuntwoman Dana Grant discusses how the most serious accident of her career was caused by a pair of, quote, slippery feminine shoes that caused her to fall, get impaled by a dagger to the face, and go into cardiac arrest. So in films where heroines are pointedly shown taking off their heels before throwing down, they probably aren't just doing it to make a statement, but also to keep the actors and the stunt workers safe. If they can't do that, some productions even do a sneaky swap for a more comfortable shoe in scenes where the actors' feet are off screen. And sometimes these swaps are digital. Gal Gadot, for example, filmed many action beats from Wonder Woman while wearing flat-soled sneakers, which were later replaced with high wedges using CGI. And this is the area where the people behind the camera can matter most. Not because only women can tell women's stories well, or all male directors overlook their actresses' needs. Ruth E. Carter, for example, a costume designer for Black Panther, has expressed her shock and joy that director Ryan Coogler explicitly wanted the Dora Milaje fighting in flats, but because according to many stunt workers and costume designers, the directors most likely to be aware of and accommodate for these specific safety and practicality struggles are other women. And Patty Jenkins wrote a Wonder Woman movie where a major through line in the development of her villain is that she can't walk in high heels.
A little bit of trouble walking in those heels, huh?
It's okay, I wear these heels all the time.
Come on, let me walk you home.
I'm not going home.
Because she's unpopular and unsexy.
Sorry, it's his heels, you know, stupid. I don't know why I was gonna wear heels. Scientists don't wear heels.
Sometimes we do.
And then she can walk in heels.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
Barbara, thank God you're good in heels.
And she's popular and sexy now.
Not so great with heels.
And that's, you know, that's the symbol of what women want, or and then she gets electrocuted. The thing is, Cheetah in general is less a character and more a pile of tropes in a trench coat.
I can't stand this scene because it doesn't feel like a conversation that grown professional women would have when they first meet. It's like watching a long form version of a CW show. The writing is terrible and the characters are like the shallowest version of themselves. And I think the purpose of the scene is to get to know Barbara as a person and also see the dynamic between these two women. What bugs me is that the scene begins with Diana telling us, the audience, that Barbara is funny. I'd quite like to have seen Barbara being funny, because so far all we know about Barbara is that she can't walk in heels and her work colleagues are the worst.
If I described a villain or antagonist who started out as an insecure, glasses-wearing, socially awkward type who quietly admired or even became obsessed with the protagonist, but was scorned by their peers or accidentally rebuffed by the hero, so their admiration turned to jealousy and hatred, and then via magic or some sort of science experiment, they underwent a physical transformation that led to their establishment as a main threat to our hero, because now that they're powerful, everyone will finally be sorry. Who would you picture? It's like 10 different characters, right? Yeah. And tropes aren't a sin, obviously, especially for a movie that wants to play with classic conventions. And there are films that have played the jealousy angle well.
How good to see you've returned from hell. I'm sure you shall pass through it one day.
But it's also tired, schlocky, spent, and overdone. And it made Barbara's trajectory painfully predictable from the moment that she stepped on screen. Another thing we've seen 100 times is the specific way in which Barbara gets her sexy villain makeover. More specifically, she gets to tumble with the trope of a girl who's not actually ugly, but wears baggy clothes and glasses and gets a hot beauty treatment that mostly consists of her learning to take off the glasses, use product in her hair, and walk in fucking heels, and she magically becomes a bombshell overnight.
Are you wearing the Chanel boots? Yeah, I am.
You look good.
If this is a villain or an anti-hero, this is also her peak transformation moment. Makeovers are fun, but like much of Wonder Woman 84, this just feels weirdly regressive in context.
Little things like that make enough. Hello.
Hello.
Barbara wears a short skirt, ditches the glasses, puts on some fucking stilettos, and is suddenly hot and popular as hell despite looking exactly the same as she did before. It's like getting punched in the face by a teen rom-com from the early 2000s, out of place in a superhero film, and boring besides.
No, anyone but her, not Janie Briggs.
The makeover, of course, happens because she wished on the wishing stone to be hot and popular, like Diana, which is a stupid plotline for any action blockbuster in the year of 2020, and even more insulting as a major villain's motivation specifically crafted to pit two women against each other. I mean, for a hot second in 2016, the United Nations named Wonder Woman a UN honorary ambassador for the empowerment of women and girls, and the ceremony was attended by both Gal Gadot and Patty Jenkins. But what's solidarity, you know? Let's end Diana and Barbara's relationship in a literal jealousy-fueled catfight.
The bullets fired on the streets as I lie in my bed are nothing to the bullets being fired in my head.
It's about the troubles, in a political sense, but also about my own troubles in a personal sense.
No, I understand the weak analogy.
There are a number of times when Wonder Woman 84 attempts to tackle subjects that it simply lacks the maturity or the authority to comment on. I don't know if it's anachronistic caricature of Egypt, which incidentally was not a monarchy in the 1980s, and Gal Gadot fighting the soldiers of a monarchic mustache-twirling oil sheik with an apartheid wall was meant to be commentary of some kind.
Egypt's poorest communities entirely cut off from their only supply of fresh water.
See, is that supposed to be like an anti-apartheid statement? I don't understand.
I don't think they put that much thought into it.
No, I don't think so either.
That whole scene looks really low budget. Actually, all the action scenes look really low budget.
If you want to suck even more joy out of your Wonder Woman 84 viewing experience, definitely sit down with a couple of people who read up on ancient civilizations in their downtime.
So it was responsible for the fall of Carthage, the final of many different falls of Rome.
Everything that had happened to the Roman Empire had happened before Romulus Augustulus was even born.
Exactly.
He was just a nominal last emperor.
Yeah. Also, like the fall of Carthage, like if that was the year. So I thought that would be a fun little Easter egg that maybe that was at the Battle of Zama, because I wasn't sure of the year. And I was like, ooh, could it be like that's what happened to Hannibal and whatever? No, like apparently that was just the actual fall of the city, which, like, again, everything in the preceding years led to the fall of Carthage. So that's not like even interesting.
Yeah, I mean, who had the stone in that situation? Did Scipio Africanus have it?
So the Mayans got wiped from the face of the earth, quote unquote, because they couldn't give up their wishes.
That's what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, the Mayans didn't still exist. The empire collapsed, but the people continued.
I know, I was about to say, like, there are Mayan people right now. You could have gone and talked to them.
Like, there was warfare, there was mass decentralization, and then, like, but there were still cities, and then hundreds of years later, like, the last city fell to the Spanish.
Yeah, didn't she say she found this at an embassy anyway? She said she found it at an embassy, so, like, it must be, like somebody...
Are they saying that the conquest of the Americas was the fault of the native tribes because they had this stone? Are they saying...
They're not saying any of that stuff because they haven't thought about it at all, like beyond thinking of a few civilizations that fell in some way or other.
Our final boss villain is Maxwell Lord, half used car salesman, half classic greedy 1980s millionaire, who starts the film with clear-cut motivations and has gone right off the deep end by the climax of the film. Lord is a general stress mess, a shitty father, and the son of a poor, abusive Latino immigrant. So here's our representation, I guess.
This movie kind of should have been about him. Following him, like, he should have been the main character of a non-Wonder Woman movie about a low-rent con man who gets a magic wishing stone.
But only if it was written well, Lauren, and that was never going to happen.
I do love Pedro Pascal, and he seemed like he was having fun with this one, so I appreciate the commitment, but mostly this made me miss his roles in other better franchises. Yeah, the moral messaging of this film is just all over the place. Like, it doesn't really know where it wants to stand or why. You know, the scene where Barbara kicks the guy's ass into unconsciousness for harassing her, and it's framed as the first sign that she's gonna slide into villainy. That guy was a rapist, right? Like, that was the implication? He wasn't an annoyance wolf whistling from across the street. He physically tried to put hands on her twice in the middle of the night despite her protests. I mean, if that was not the script's intent, then they did a very bad job of clarifying whatever it was they were actually going for. So, yeah. I mean, don't kill him, but do kick that guy. And keep kicking him. My point is, in a universe defined by vigilante justice, someone beating up a person who attacked them twice is not the spine-chilling turn toward villainy that I think they were going for. Like, Batman would have also done that. Snyder's Batman would have personally seen to it that that man got murdered in prison. Anyway, there is more. By which I mean a disturbing plotline of potential non-consent involving the man that Steve Trevor accidentally body snatched, and they literally never even talk about it. More specifically, we are told that Steve Trevor has not spawned into independent physical form in this movie, but rather that he is in the body of a separate, real, living man who already resided in the area. I know the body swap is an 80s trope and that the filmmakers have since used this as an attempt to explain the problem away, but questions still abound. Was it this man's natural time to die and Steve's soul non-violently found housing in his recently vacated body? Did Steve's arrival accidentally murder this man or trap him in the sunken place of his own mind, screaming to be let out and unable to control his own actions? We don't know. And the weirdest part is, the reason that we don't know is because this film about Diana Prince, paragon of justice, never even discusses it. I mean, Diana Prince, paragon of justice, definitely does the do with Steve Trevor, but at no point do they stop and discuss whether this is an ethical use of a stranger's body. It also just doesn't make sense. Like, the wishing stone makes those farm animals appear. Do the spirits of those cows appear inside the bodies of other pre-existing cows? Or what, it can resurrect a human soul, but it can't create more than one type of meat sack? I was happy to see Chris Pine, despite the circumstances of his return, but it struck me as very funny that he was a World War I veteran, right? He introduces the war to Diana, calling it the war to end all wars, before eventually giving his life for a cause that he doesn't know yet will succeed. And we never see anyone telling him that his side won the war, or his reaction to this knowledge. Not only that, but what about when he finds out that the war to end all wars wasn't? What would Steve Trevor think about the atomic bomb, about Agent Orange after he worked so hard to stop Dr. Poison? Also, I was so prepared for the fireworks scene to be a PTSD trigger for Steve, because that's a classic, right? Fireworks triggering flashbacks of gunfire or shelling in veterans. But even though he would have last seen combat very recently, it's just never discussed. What else didn't make sense in this movie? Why can a pilot from the 1910s fly an F-111 aardvark 70 years later? Why is it sitting on the tarmac at night? Why did it have fuel in it? Why did that fuel enable them to fly from Washington, D.C. to Cairo without stopping when the F-111 aardvark can fly a max of about 3,500 miles without refueling? Or did they stop somewhere halfway across the ocean in their invisible stolen jet, and Steve pumped jet fuel while Diana put the charge on her Amex, and some poor minimum wage airport worker just stood there like, guys, this is a Wendy's? And the armor. It was really cool to see Linda Carter get a cameo as Asteria, but the armor itself is ugly as hell, I'm sorry. It gets hyped up as god tier and then it's ripped apart in about 5 minutes by a giant cat. The whole thing seems like a waste. And Mark Bernardin of the Fat Man Beyond podcast with Kevin Smith actually came up with a genuinely great alternative to the way it played out in the film.
I kept on wondering and wanting this movie to be about what those two women want, and how their desires are somewhat misguided by grief and fear, and how they learn that neither of those things are necessarily bad. They're part of being human, but they need to be tempered by, in Diana's case, hope, and by, in Barbara's case, love. fucking Diana goes to Linda Carter, who's now older, who's been in man's world perhaps for longer than Diana's ever been. And she says I need the armor. Like, my power's gone. I can't stand. I need the armor to protect me. And ultimately that scene is where Linda Carter reminds fucking Wonder Woman what being Wonder Woman is all about, which is you were bred from warriors. You were trained at the feet of the finest warriors the world has ever known. Power doesn't make you great. So in the third act, fucking Diana has to face her powerless, which is why, of course, you need the fucking armor, relying on the skill and the smarts and heart to win. And she finally forces Barbara to renounce her wish. You wanted to be loved, and now you're feared. So Barbara renounces her wish of the power, but it's not the end. The end is Diana needs to follow suit. So the big last sequence, not the kickoff of your third act, but the culmination of your third act, is Diana needs to say goodbye to Steve. She realizes that he's the one that's keeping, Barbara is still overpowered, the disarray, and so she needs to let go of her old love to bring the world back to normal.
Yeah, I mean, she defeated the God of War 70 years ago. At full power, she should be able to handle a big cat lady. So if you're going to introduce the armor for their fight, have her use it before she gets her strength back rather than after. Oh, plus, this movie makes Batman v Superman even funnier. For that one bit where Bruce Wayne sends her an old antique photo from World War I as proof that he knows something of her mysterious history, and she was running around a mall in the 80s. She was in the White House. There were news reports about her, Bruce. Also, the entire planet would never have renounced their wishes at the end. Some of them. Like a lot of them, maybe. But not everybody. And what happened if two people made wishes that counteracted one another? Did people remember what had happened at the end of this? Renouncing the wishes didn't make their memories disappear, did it? Did everyone just go, that was weird, and go about their day? This would have been a massive and universally traumatizing international event that proved the existence of magic in the minds of the public, and 13 years later in Man of Steel, Jonathan Kent is like, no, don't let people know that you can run a little bit fast. Let me die in this tornado. Anyway, I could do a deep dive on all of the logic problems in this movie, but that would be another 1,000 words, and I finished writing this at 4 a.m., so in the end, I wouldn't be pissed if I wasn't disappointed. I really wanted to love this film. I was really excited that they were making it because I wanted it to be even better than the first.
Heels.
Guess I should have been careful what I wished for. Also, my friend sent me this and I told him I'd put it in. I know this montage is supposed to be, look how ridiculous this outfit is, but it's actually impossible to make Chris Pine look bad. So this is a look how hot Chris Pine is, wrapped in a critique.